Imagine you're living 2000 years ago. No internet, no smartphones, no YouTube. And if you wanted to argue with strangers, you actually had to walk somewhere. Now imagine someone tells you that a carpenter from a tiny town in the Middle East is going to become the most influential person in human history. You'd probably laugh and say, yeah, okay. But that's exactly what happened. And today, we're talking about Jesus, the man whose life changed the world forever. And whether you're a Christian, not a Christian, or just curious, his story is honestly pretty incredible. Let's start with the setting. The Roman Empire was basically the superpower of the world. They controlled huge territories, had massive armies, impressive roads, and enough confidence to think they were going to last forever. Meanwhile, in a small part of the empire called Judea, most people were waiting for something, or rather, a someone. For centuries, Jewish prophets had spoken about a coming Messiah, a chosen one who would save God's people, and many expected a mighty king, a warrior, someone who would overthrow enemies and restore power. So naturally, God's plan was to send a baby, not exactly what people had in mind. And Jesus was born in Bethlehem and raised in Nazareth, and Nazareth wasn't exactly famous. In fact, it was so unimportant that when people heard Jesus came from Nazareth, people basically responded with, "What? Nazareth? Seriously?" Imagine telling someone the future ruler of the world came from the most random town they can think of. And that's the kind of reaction we're talking about. For most of his life, Jesus lived pretty normally. He worked as a carpenter. No army, no palace, no political office, no million followers. Just an ordinary life. At least on the surface. Then, around the age of 30, everything changed. Jesus began traveling and teaching, and people noticed something different immediately. He didn't teach like the religious leaders of his day. He spoke with confidence. He told stories that ordinary people could understand. Farmers understood him, fishermen understood him, children understood him, and even people who disagreed with him couldn't stop talking with him. And here's where things get interesting. Jesus didn't spend most of his time with powerful people. He spent his time with the poor, the sick, the outcasts, people society usually ignored. He ate with people others avoided, he helped people others looked down on, and he constantly reminded everyone that every person matters to God. And that message was radical back then. And honestly, it's still pretty radical now. And according to the Gospels, Jesus also performed miracles. The blind received sight, the sick were healed, storms were calmed, and thousands were fed from a small amount of food. And one of the most famous stories says he even raised a man named Lazarus from the dead. And now, whether someone believes these miracles happened or not, one thing is clear. Stories about Jesus spread incredibly fast. People couldn't stop talking about him, but not everyone was happy. The more popular Jesus became, the more tension grew, and some religious leaders felt threatened. Some political leaders became concerned, and crowds can be unpredictable. One day they cheer for you, and the next they're posting angry comments. Human nature has not changed much. Eventually, Jesus was arrested, put on trial, mocked, beaten, and sentenced to the death by crucifixion. Crucifixion was one of the harshest punishments in the Roman world. It was designed to be public, painful, and humiliating. And for Jesus' followers, this seemed like the end. Their teacher was gone. Their hopes were crushed. Everything appeared lost. But Christianity exists because the story didn't end there. Jesus' followers claim that 3 days after his death, he rose from the dead, not as a ghost, not as a symbol. They believed he physically rose and appeared to many people. And this became the foundation of Christianity. It changed everything. Think about it. A small group of frightened followers suddenly became bold enough to spread their message across the Roman Empire. And within a few centuries, Christianity had spread throughout much of the known world. And it didn't spread through military conquest, not through wealth, not through political power, but through ordinary people sharing what they believed they had witnessed. And that's remarkable whether you're religious or not. And here's something I find very fascinating. The Roman Empire eventually fell. Many powerful kings came and went. Entire civilizations rose and disappeared. Yet billions of people still today know the name Jesus. His teachings continue to shape laws, cultures, charities, education, and the lives of people around the globe. And for someone who never commanded an army, never held political office, and never wrote a book himself, that is pretty extraordinary. So who was Jesus? Christians believe he's the Son of God and the Savior of the world. Others see him as a great teacher, a prophet, or one of history's most influential figures. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. No person has had a greater impact on human history. And that's why, more than 2,000 years later, people are still asking the same question. Who exactly was Jesus? And maybe that's a question each of us has to answer for ourselves. So, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing for more videos about Christianity, history, faith, and the stories that shaped our world. See you in the next one.